So everyone's got a story, right? You got a story, I got a story, but why does that story stay stuck with us? I think sometimes God allows us to go through things in life so actually we can expand his kingdom by sharing that story with other people. I mean, I know I've been inspired so many times by people who have been humble enough to share what they went through. It just kind of keeps me able to go through my stuff as well. So I'm super excited today because we have a guest, Michelle Prince, and she's going to talk about the importance of that, about how to shine through your story. You're going to love this. Michelle, thank you so much for hanging out with us today.
Hey, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, so much fun. And when, just this whole idea of everyone's got a story. I think so many times people think that no one can resonate with their story, or their story has to stay stuck with them. Or the worst part, I think, is that it's so big in me, but I don't know how to get it out.
Yes.
Like, tell me about that. Tell me what caused you to write this book anyway.
So I've always been passionate about stories. And the way I look at a story is it's just who we are. It's our life, it's our experiences, it's our passions. And I look at it as a gift. God's given us the story of our lives. Not all of us like all the chapters, but we've all have something to share. And when we share a story, we connect with other people. And so this book has actually been a long time coming. I worked on it for many years. And it's just an extension of what I've been helping people do for the last 12, 13 years and helping them figure out what their story is.
Oh, that's so awesome, because I talk to a lot of people and they're like, I know that my story could help someone else.
Yeah.
But they just don't know how to get it out there. Like, is it like, what do you think is standing in the way between someone actually like taking what they've gone through and sharing it, not just one to one, but one to many? Like, I believe everyone has a talk inside of them. They have a book inside them. They have even maybe a program to help other people to solve the problems they've solved in life. What stands in the way, though?
Oh my gosh, I think so many people think that their story doesn't matter, like, or who cares, or, my story's not that great, or I'm not this person, or I'm not that person. But the reality is there's every story matters. And even if you share your story over coffee with a girlfriend down the street, the story might matter to one person. So, I mean, I love writing and I love speaking, and I chose, and my part of my calling is to get my story out in a bigger platform, but you don't have to have a huge platform to make an impact with your story.
Yeah. So where would someone get started? Like, if they're like, this matters to me, like what I went through in my life, where would they get started just by taking that to a public platform?
So if you're even having an inkling that you think, well, maybe I have a story, what I always suggest is first thing is getting clear on, well, what is your story, right? Long before you decide what to do with it. And one of the easiest ways to do it, it's an exercise I do in one of my workshops called Bookbound. And it helps people to get clarity on their core message. And like you said, everyone has a course or a book or something. That's your core message. So I like to just do a T chart, keep it simple. And on the left-hand side of the T, write the word passion at the top.
Okay.
And on that side, you just really think about, what are you passionate about? Nothing to do with a book, but just in life in general. Are you passionate about kids, being a mom, like I know you are? Are you passionate about teaching or personal development or traveling or cooking, whatever it is? And you make a long list of those things. Once you've finished the passion side, excuse me, then you go over to the right side of the T. And that is, you write the word experiences on the top. And experience can be a lot of different things, right? You and I have experience as moms, maybe you have experience as a business owner, experience in sales, et cetera. But you may have also experienced some things that you probably didn't want to experience, potentially divorce or bankruptcy or abuse or so many other things. And again, this isn't about a book yet or anything. But then you write all these experiences down. Now, if you just look at that list holistically, that is who you are, because you are a combination of your passions and your experiences. But where the magic comes in is trying to find a connection, something that's on your passion side, but then also on the experience side. And I'll give you an example. So my background, I right out of college, I've always been passionate about personal development and leadership and all these things. And so that's on my passion list. And many, many other things. I'm passionate about the beach, my faith, my pugs, all these things. But then on my experience side, I have a lot of experiences, one of which was working for Zig Ziglar, which was a really great experience. But I'll share this with your community. And I do this vulnerably because I know somebody out there needs to hear this. One of my experiences that is on my list that I don't want to share with the world, but it's on there, it's part of my story, is when I was younger, I had really low self-esteem when I was in like high school and early years. And it impacted me, confidence. So why do I put that on my list? Well, it impacted the people I hung around with. It impacted my decisions. And it was an impactful time in my life. So it goes down. What's the point? The point is I'm passionate about personal development and being my best self. My
Yeah.
experience tells me I had to use personal development to kind of get my mindset out of some areas. And then I also learned a few things from Zig, so that combination is actually my core message. And my first book was Winning in Life Now, How to Break Through to a Happier You. And it's just what naturally, another way to think of it is what naturally do you just share with a friend without
Yeah.
even thinking about it? That's your core story.
Yeah, that's so true. I remember reading, I think I would love for people who are listening or watching right now to just have permission to be authentic.
Yes.
I think that's the big kicker is that, reading a lot of books, because I'm an avid reader. I never just read one book at a time.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. You can see my pile.
Okay, my husband calls me Thomas Jefferson. He's like, like when we went and toured his home,
Yeah.
I remember there was like on his desk there were like 6 books, and the tour guide was saying that's how he would read, is he would read from like at least like 6, 7, 8 books at a time, and he's like, oh my gosh, it's you.
Yeah.
Because I'm always like in the middle of all different kinds of books.
Yeah.
But I remember reading it, like exposing myself to all the, just like you, like personal development freak, like
Yes.
I could just, you and I, okay, here's our dream date. Are you ready for this, Michelle?
Yes. Yes.
You and I, we take our dogs on a walk. Okay, my doodles, your pugs, we go on a walk, and then we decide, okay, now we're going to make a trip to the bookstore. We get coffee and we hang out there for freaking 3 hours.
Yep. That is perfect.
Probably in the same, until our dogs need us again. And then we'll
Yes.
come back and we'll feed them and go on another walk. At the beach. Let's put
At
the
the
beach in
beach.
there too. At the beach. Okay, so now we have our perfect dream day, right? So that's me. And I love reading. And I remember thinking that my book has to sound like everyone else's book. And I felt so stifled. And I remember thinking, no, you know what? I am pretty unfiltered. I'm pretty, like, I laugh in the most awkward situations. And I know there's got to be someone out there like me who can't, yes, they're the ones who do cut up in the middle of something really serious and get kicked out, like that kind of thing. So it's like, when I finally gave myself permission to add that to my books and just be like who I really am, it was so much easier.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of times people are like, well, this book has to sound like this formula here.
Oh my gosh, I felt that way for so long. I mean, so the good and the bad of working for somebody like Zig Ziglar was I thought that, well, who am I to write a book?
Girl.
Yeah, I'm no Zig Ziglar, right?
Girl. Yeah.
But then it just kind of hit me is that, you know what, everyone's, even if I'm sharing the same information, because here's the thing, there's no new idea under the sun, right? So if I'm sharing with somebody how to find their goals or their passion or their purpose, my stories are going to resonate with somebody who's a mom or a working mom or somebody who's a Christian or somebody, you know what I mean? So there's so many different ways that our stories impact, even if it's the same story. And I laugh that you brought up the bookstore, because this is a true story quote that I say all the time. And I still believe it's true. You can tell a lot about a person based on where they end up in a bookstore.
I know we would be at the personal development aisle.
Completely. Personal, professional development. Whereas my husband, he'd probably be in the history section.
Yep. Or the biography section.
Yes.
I'd be hanging out in psychology and personal development and all that. So,
totally.
That's so funny. Oh my goodness. I love that. And this idea of like, I can just be authentic. I can be who I am. But it's hard to always get that out. Like sometimes we start things we don't finish. I've literally talked with people and we're not just talking about books here. Like, yes, it's important to get your story out. A book is one way. Sharing it is one way. A stage is one way.
Yes.
YouTube channel is one way. Start a podcast is one. Like there's so many. We have never lived in a time where there's more available platforms for us to share our story. Like never before. And so what I want to encourage people is it could be anything that resonates with you. Do you just like talking? Do you enjoy making videos? And it doesn't have to be perfect. Like talk about this whole perfection paralysis when it comes to getting your story out.
Well, I think a lot of times people also think that they're making it all about them. I hear this a lot, especially with believers too, is like, the humility part of us, like, well, I shouldn't really put myself out there that much. I totally disagree because, and the book I wrote is Shine Through Your Story. The whole point of
Right.
that is Matthew 5:14 through 16, which is all about that we're called to shine our light. And when we do, we're not making it about us. We're merely reflecting the light of the
Right.
sun.
Right.
So it's not about us. But when we keep our stories, and what I mean by story is the lessons you've learned, the things that you've overcome,
Yeah.
the things that could inspire, equip, or motivate someone, when you keep those to yourself, is that really building the kingdom?
Yeah.
No, right? So think of it. I always try to say, flip it around. This isn't about you.
Yeah.
But if you have a desire to help people, to inspire people, think about what if that one thing you shared with them, even over coffee, changed their life for the better? Would it be worth it? Yes.
That is so powerful. And I really think that's false humility.
Yeah.
Like
We
saying, well, I don't want to make it all about me. I'm sorry, I don't believe it. I just don't believe it. Like that's not true because you probably make everything about you. But no, I'm just serious, Michelle. Like
No, I know.
the more times like I coach people, we're always number one in our mind. We're always thinking about our safety, our happiness, our joy, which is normal. That's how we're
Totally.
programmed. So
Yeah.
don't tell me, oh, I don't want to make it all about me, because you're making the decision to not share your story all about you
Yeah.
because you don't feel comfortable doing it, or you're not sure how to do it, or you make it bigger than it really is. You can just open up and share what God has done in your life. And that could be enough, just like you said, to change one life.
That's right. And what if that one life was under your roof? I mean, maybe by you thinking and getting clarity on your story and how, not the details don't matter so much. So we do a lot of books for people who have been through some traumatic things.
Ah, totally.
And the question always is, well, how do I tell my story without hurting other people? Because a lot of times it includes other people. And I always say you have to think about it though. Your story is intended for the listener or the reader.
Yeah.
And they don't need to know the person's name, nor do they need to know the exact details of
Right.
what happened. If it was abuse, do they need to know the specifics of that? For you to share your story of how you've overcome it? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
I,
you could share their name, address, and phone number and all the private information so that other people can take retribution. No, I'm joking.
yeah.
I'm joking. Please.
There's some that would love that.
Some people are like, hey, okay, we're going to go egg his house tonight. All right. Who's with me?
Yes.
No, joking. No, we don't have to
Yeah.
share the private information, but we do
Yeah.
have to share the impact that it made.
And
Some
and
people
I
don't want to rehearse that, but it's not rehearsing it. It's saying, look at what came out of it. It could be glorious.
I know. Honestly, if it comes down to it, I think it's when people are kind of like, well, I don't know about sharing my story. It's they're not seeing what's already in them. Like, meaning they don't see what God created them to be. Because if they did, they would feel more confident and comfortable being like, you know what? I don't have a perfect life, but if I could turn around and help one person from not stepping in that pothole that I just went through, then I'm going to do it. But it takes confidence, and it takes, a little, it's scary, right?
It's
Sometimes
so
playing small
scary. It's
is easier.
vulnerability. We don't want to be vulnerable.
No.
Like
And
we're always trying to protect ourselves.
and I'll be straight, and because I try to be very authentic and real as well. This book, so I've written many books. This book, easiest one for me to write because I've been talking about this my whole life.
Uh-huh.
I know my story, my faith journey better than anyone, but yet this book took me longer than any other book. And if I'm really honest about it, I was busy. I was this. But the truth of the matter is, I was playing small and being a little fearful of, well, I'm putting a faith-based book out now. What are people going to think? And because my audience, it may or may not all be that.
Right.
And
Right.
then it literally, as I was proofreading it one day, in my spirit, I just felt God say, like, this book is for you.
Yeah.
Get out there again. Stop playing small. Help it, never ever be intimidated by what you think you could share with somebody to make a difference, because
Mm.
you can. And so anyway, anyone who's feeling that, I can understand.
Yeah.
I
Because
really can.
it's scary to think that you could isolate people. And
Mhm.
also in this, like we think it has to please everybody. And we also think it has to resonate with everyone. We don't ever want to like say, no, this isn't for you. However, what I truly believe is if we're writing a book for everyone, then we're writing a book for no one.
Absolutely right.
Because there's
Absolutely.
like you can't be everyone's cup of tea.
Yeah.
Like, some people don't even like tea. I don't like tea. So it's like you're not for everybody. And
Yeah.
so if you like, I remember for a long time because I would get a lot of like brand gigs and endorse this. And I was like, wow, if I'm really like vocal about my faith, guess what?
Mhm.
All this business goes away.
Mhm.
And I remember like thinking that and God saying, "Oh, can I not like show up bigger than that? Like really you're
Yeah.
dependent upon these brand deals instead of the covenant I have with you through the blood of Jesus, really?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, you're my all sufficient one." Okay.
Yeah.
But like he always has a way. And actually that's when I started to make real sustainable income.
Yeah.
When I decided to be authentic to who I was, because there's going to be people who are like, I resonate with you. You're
Right.
speaking my language. Like, we have like our believer language. Like, I'll never forget one time I was walking into a conference and um, like, I think there were like at least 12,000 people there, right? And I
Uh-huh.
walked in and I always go to these conferences by myself or with one of
I
my
do. I love those
no,
in
okay, so we
conferences.
need to incorporate that into our dream date.
Yes.
Okay, all right, that sounds good. But I like showed up for this guy, usually just because my husband always has to stay with the kids. Like one of us has to be home with the
Same.
kids. Yep, yep.
Or was.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, now it's the dogs. I have to stay home with the
Yeah,
dog.
that's exactly. Our whole life
Yep.
revolves around our dogs.
Yes. Seriously, we make these decisions based on two doodles. But anyway, so I'm there and I walk up to this guy who's sitting there, like everyone's kind of like, running around. And I love meeting new people. And I saw him, I thought, well, you look amazing. Like he was dressed head to toe.
Oh.
And he said, well, I received that. I said, you're a believer, aren't you? He said, yes. Like we just have our own language,
We kind of do.
we gotta do like I received that, like amen.
Yeah.
Like, throwing a little bit of by the blood, and you're dealing with serious people. But this kind of like you got your own language, you have your own platform. And when you start resonating with people, now it's like, wait, you know me, you're speaking my
Yeah.
language. And now you've got an audience. Like, I don't think we ever have to worry about pleasing everyone because then you please no one.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, if you know you have something that could help somebody, what does it matter if if it doesn't hit everybody, right? What's funny, what's interesting, I was just telling my team this yesterday. So we launched this book a couple weeks ago. And in my mind, women, this is really for women, although it could be for either, but I've had more response from men reading this book. And
Wow.
which is amazing to me
Yeah.
because again, I just assumed I would, be people like me, basically. And anyway, so you just don't know who it's going to settle on. And sometimes the people that you think are going to hate it the most or really not like it, they may not understand it,
Yeah.
but something in it is going to be like, I want to learn more, or she's got something that I don't have, or,
Yeah.
so if anything, maybe it'll make them curious about you and your faith and all that.
That's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. So I want to talk like how, because I want people to go away with an actionable step.
Yes.
Like what could they do? Like before we wrap up this podcast, I really want people to have something they can take away to start bringing their story out. What
Yes.
could they do? Or what
So
could they believe? What could they do? Tell me.
absolutely. First thing is that exercise. Do that passion experience exercise because you will get so much clarity. If nothing else, you will just have so much more clarity on all the gifts you bring to the world. But then settle it down. And again, I like to play games in my head sometimes, and I'll be like, okay, if I got a call today and I had to be somewhere to speak on a stage at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, no time to prepare nothing. And they just said, speak from, whatever you want to talk on. What would I say? And I
Ooh,
do this with my clients all the time too. And it's like people will say, well, I would talk about, that you find your purpose or you're created for this or how to be a business owner, all of those things. That
yeah.
is a clue. And so follow that path of doing the exercise and remember that passion, I love helping people look at passion first because I think passion, it's not all about passion, but it is a clue. I think it's a clue to your purpose because I just know God's not going to give us a purpose in life we hate. He's not that way. It's going to be something we love, right? So second step, well, after you've done that, I do love journaling. I recommend journaling. I recommend doing mind mapping to just kind of get all of those thoughts out of your head onto paper. And don't approach this as if you're writing a book or do a talk or a podcast. Just again, if you could think of one person that you could encourage, inspire, motivate, or equip, what would you say to them? And just start writing,
Yeah.
journaling, and don't overthink it. In the book, I talk about a process for journaling and listening, and because God wants us to know His plan for us. It's
Yeah.
not like He's just magically like, "Oh, I'm just going to wait until she figures it
Right.
out."
Right.
He wants us to know, and so you have to ask and have that time to listen. And for me, I get all my downloads when I'm journaling. And so just listen and find out, but don't overthink it. Just start journaling, writing, and it will eventually come closer. Now, there's a lot more I could share about writing a book and all, but that
Yeah.
would be my advice for anyone just like dipping their toe in,
Yeah.
well, what would it be?
Yeah. And it might just be becoming more public
Hmm.
with your story. It could look like just sharing things, creating a YouTube channel.
Yes.
Creating, like, use your Instagram or Facebook to start making videos to just share your story. Sometimes when I'm like, what if you could divide, like, if you had a lesson to share, if you had an experience that someone could help their life or maybe entertain their life or something.
Mhm.
If you could just write that down into like 6 different chapters. What
Yeah.
if you just like talked about that, like went live, talked about it, or made a video and talked about it and made it easy for you, full of mistakes, full of errors, full of imperfection,
Yeah.
but it's just the way you get started. Like, could you do that?
And don't underestimate how much God may be calling you to do that. Because think of it this way: where would we be if the apostles didn't write down their story?
Right.
I
Oh,
mean, think about that.
yeah.
And they weren't thinking where it was going to go at the time. So just put it out there. And because you never know how something's going to be orchestrated so that the right person hears it, reads it, connects with it.
Well, that is so, so powerful. I love that idea. Like, just get the ball rolling. Get
Yeah.
over the ideas that it has to be a certain way and just start putting it out there. So many platforms available to you, so many ways that your story can help someone else. I remember hearing, I followed her, I can't remember her name right now, but she had a blog, and
Mhm.
she would just write a little bit about her and her husband's love story, how they met.
Oh,
And sure enough, each one of those blog posts became a chapter, and now she had a book about their love story. Could you
I
imagine,
know.
like, having a book about your great great grandparents' love
I
story?
know. I know.
Like, how beautiful is that? Like, it doesn't have to be like some lifelong, like, here's how to, the secrets of the universe. It
Right.
could be, here's this beautiful story. Well, how I met your mother. How I
Yeah.
met your
How I
father,
met your, oh, that's
right?
so
Like
good.
those kind of things.
I love that. Yes. And I will tell you too, it's kind of like who you become as a result
Mm,
of getting your story out there, not so much about the book or the podcast or anything itself, but it's you see a different side of yourself that was already there.
yeah.
So there's just so much more benefit than things to fear.
Powerful, so powerful. Awesome. Thank you so much. So, okay, where can people get your book and know more about you? We want to definitely get some action steps here.
Awesome. Well, if you go to shinethroughyourstory.com, you can learn about the book. Also, I have a free software that people can download to get a personalized text message from God every day, and a bunch
Ooh,
of other cool little fun things there.
so cool.
Yeah, take advantage of that. And then I'm on, I won't say I'm the best on social media, but I'm mostly on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn under Michelle Prince.
Awesome. Michelle, thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Oh, thank you for having me. This was fun.
Oh, it's so good. When you get your story out there, oh my goodness, not just you, but so many other people can be blessed like crazy.